kind of got lost in the sauce there.
All right, guys, I am done with Of Empires and Dust by Ryan Cahill. I finished this book a little bit ago, but I finally have my thoughts put together on it. Did it have a great ending? Yes. Is it an amazing addition to this book? Yes. Is it over 1,600 pages? Yes, it is. But it's epic fantasy at its best. We're talking war, consequences, magic, druids, dragons. He does a great job. Let's get into it. I am Conrad, and this is Treadmill Reviews. All right, guys, we're going to start with world building and setting. And I actually think Ryan Cahill does a lot of good right here. This is a big continent, and he spends a lot of time across the continent. I love that in my books. I do like to be kind of flipping back and forth, looking at the map, seeing where my character is, seeing where these other characters are, flipping back, reading that little portion. I just like it when you have a map in the beginning of the book and you're spending a lot of time around it. And I think Ryan Cahill really does that, especially in this book, in the series, where I felt like I was constantly being like, okay, where we're at, we're over here, and oh, okay, we're over here. And I just really enjoyed that. I do think, though, that his lore building is the best in this one that it has been. The dwarves particularly shined for me with one of the best chapters in the whole series, taking place under the mountains. But I felt like he finally just got into the lore. Like, for so long, you've been reading these books, and one's after another, and he's just like teasing you, and he's dropping this, and he's dropping that. In this one, you get full chapters dedicated to just like lore drops, which honestly, I really needed that, and I felt like it added so much to this story. I don't think he does anything new with his magic system in this one. It's the same old kind of Wheel of Time thing he's got going on, but he does lean more into how the different species and races across the continent that we're kind of exploring in this book, how they use magic. So we're talking like the Jotner and how they use magic. We're talking about the elves, how they use magic, and the dwarves, how they use magic. And it's all just kind of different in how magic plays a role with them. And that's where he shines at, and that's where I think his world building is really shining. And obviously, if you're reading these books, you love druids, and we'll say the druids get it. You get a lot of magic from them specifically in this portion of the book and or this far into the series. It's awesome. You're going to love every portion of that. And next, I want to talk about the characters and the perspectives that we're kind of dealing with in this. And this book is packed with point of views. At this point, I mean, I felt like there was 10, 15 plus point of views that you're dealing with, and even some really small point of views that happen. But thankfully, the main cast, even though the main cast is massive, is where you spend the majority of your time. You do get a lot of Kaelin, main character. Of course, you're going to get a lot of him. You get a lot of Rist. You get a lot of Dane. Well, not as much Dane as you have in the last books. And I actually felt like I spent more time with Dahl in this series. You spent a lot of time with Dane, but not just Jane's perspective, just like his whole family, between his sister, his now girlfriend that he's hanging out with. Like, you spend a lot of time in that area. Even I think Belina's in this portion of the book as well. So a lot of point of views. And Ryan Cahill in this book, I think actually the best part of this book is that he lets his characters breathe. We get entire chapters dedicated to letting two people talk. I mean, when they're catching up on things that have happened, where there's straight up dialogue, and it's not boring either. I mean, like, you finally get to have some interactions that we've been waiting for the entire series come together, and they just have like real good dialogue. And he just does a really good job with that, especially considering how big the cast is, and a couple additions to the cast that I don't want to spoil. One of my major criticisms is that occasionally some of his character voices do start to sound similar, and a few characters sound a little bit too similar to one or another, and I'm not going to say which ones. But he does avoid the classic fantasy trope of like head hopping during the climaxes, and he doesn't leave you hanging when one really good event is happening. Like, he just kind of like keeps you with the perspective where the most action's at, and when that wraps up, he moves on to the next section where there's additionally a lot more action going on. And I, as a reader, really appreciated that, because sometimes I feel like I'm reading books, and right as things are getting juicy, they pull me right out of that to put me into some way less exciting portion. Right. And next, I want to talk about the pacing and the structure of this book, because it is huge. It's 1,600 plus pages. It's massive, but I could not put it down. And I love epic fantasy, but a lot of epic fantasy just really will drag at portions. And I don't know how he did it, but he structured this between the lore drops, the brutal action, the great character development, the way that he put it together. It really did not drag at all. It wasn't boring. I didn't find myself hoping to get to another portion of the book. It hit for me the entire time. And I almost feel like Cahill is one of his greatest strengths as an author is that he can structure these huge books, like 1,600 page books, to not be boring and to be engaging the whole time. That is the next batch of conversation is going to be about the themes and the emotional resonance. And I want to talk about the themes of this book are PTSD. It's about consequences. And I think actually Ryan Cahill does a good job with this because he lets his characters live in their kind of like emotional aftermath that they have. A lot of bad things happen at the end of the third book. We spend a lot in this book going over what happened, dealing with the problems, dealing with how this is affecting their mental psyche, how they're dealing with grief. And unfortunately, it does read as if Ryan Cahill has had a lot of personal grief in his life, because it reads like really relatably, and that's really sad and unfortunate, but it hits. Like, it does a good job. There's one scene towards the end of the book between Kaylin and Dan that you will be crying through. It's just like, it's brutal. There is also like a really strong theme, I feel like, through the whole book about home, what it means to have a home, what it means to lose a home, what it means to find a new one, and what it means to fight for something that might feel like home again in the future, and the people that inhabit that space. So it does have a lot going on, and I actually think that the combination of his character development with a lot of these themes is what drives a lot of these chapters he has written that are just characters talking to each other. It does a good job, and I personally was definitely emotionally invested in these characters and in the story that they were telling. Finishing up, I want to do the Treadmill Analysis. How did this book treadmill? And honestly, I didn't feel like it was the best book for sitting down here doing cardio. A lot of the dialogue heavy chapters, a lot of the lore heavy chapters just required a little bit more focus. And I felt like, on the treadmill, it's a little bit easy to kind of like daydream and get a little lost in the sauce. So maybe not the best for the treadmill, but I feel like if you're really into Wheel of Time, this fourth book, it's a way tighter narrative than the majority of Wheel of Time books. It's doing really good. He leans even further into that Joe Abercrombie style of gritty, kind of grim action. So I felt like, honestly, Cahill's at his best in this book. Like, this is the best one he's written. It's 8 out of 10 for me. Solid 8 out of 10. And if you've made it this far in the series, like, do not slow down. Finish this one out. It's where it's at. Like, it's fantastic. This book is fire. That's it for today. If anybody's interested in me doing like a spoiler review, just kind of drop it down in the comments. I would totally be down to film one, but I'm going to be putting out more of these treadmill reviews. And just like and subscribe, and I'll put out as many as I can. Thank you.